Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Hope you guys are doing okay today. I gotta be honest, I don't know what time it is back in the States. It's 6:05 in Nairobi. First, before I do anything else, if you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and you can always support through Patreon or Streamlabs. Streamlabs Super Chat alternative. That's not a push, it's just a heads up. The show has been demonetized, so I give that pitch, not necessarily because I love to get that pitch, but because at this point all channels do it. I don't have to like it, I just need to make it work. So I annoyed my wife greatly today. We're sitting in a restaurant. I came across an article, and I slightly flipped out, but I'm going to explain to you why I flipped out. I think she cares less. We're getting to the precipice of terrifying events, massive, global, epic events, with people who are intent on a certain degree of brinksmanship that can take us into realms that are unfathomable from the standpoint of the damage that will befall all of us. We're led by fools and psychopaths, and that has consequences. Oftentimes, the government itself seems to be detached from the public, meaning that things that they do seems to be unattached to the public. Let me start with this context. First, I want to make the point that the Democratic Party has been pushing the Trump administration to be more hawkish and into a warlike footing. That's my premise. That's the premise that I'm going by. Before the First World War, the map looked different. You had the Ottoman Empire, you had Serbian Empire, not empire, but Serbia as a up-and-coming power. You had the Hungarian Empire, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. That's the part I want to talk about, at least in the beginning. And I'm going to try to go through this fast, but it is a few articles that I want to do because I want to tie in this narrative on why this is dramatically dangerous, at least from the perspective that I take this. The Austrian-Hungarian Empire was to some degree a superpower, not necessarily to the degree of Germany, but it was a power, an aging power, but a power nonetheless. And it saw itself as such. Now, there were a series of alignments, meaning pacts. Many countries was in alignment with other countries. So in cases of a war, those alliances will be implemented and multiple countries will be at war at once. Serbia manipulated this to some degree. Now, Archduke Ferdinand was shot. Now, people say, well, this precipitated the war. To some degree, that's true. To some degree, that's false. Everything that I'm saying here, you can find on The Great War. Awesome channel. Absolutely check him out. But this will drive with the history that he's added context to that I've studied over the years. Archduke Ferdinand was shot. That's true. Archduke Ferdinand was shot in Syria. That is also true. Archduke Ferdinand, however, the Serbian government used this moment, this killing, in a similar way. I'm sorry, not the Serbian government, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire used this killing in a similar way as the Bush administration used 9/11. They knew, full stop, full well, that Serbia, the government itself, wasn't responsible for him being shot. That didn't stop them from essentially trying to put certain concessions that they knew the Serbian government would never acquiesce to. One of those things to having essentially trials within their country, usurping the authority of their own government. There was no way that they could attend to this, but if they knew, Austria-Hungary, that they wouldn't attend to this, because they were going with a certain military doctrine. Now, the Austro-Hungarian Empire looked at Serbia as an up-and-coming power, and they wanted to essentially hit them in the knees before they got to the point where they thought they would be a threat to their power. Now, they looked at this, at least the goofball that was in power, I can't think of his name off the... I can see his face, I can't think of his name. But his military doctrine was it is perfectly okay to have preemptive war, especially if it's preemptive war against up-and-coming powers that may challenge our, you could say, hegemony or hegemonic force in this region. That war was started on false pretense. It was started because they wanted to kill an up-and-coming power. The pretense that it was used was you shot this guy, you shot our emperor, you need to pay for it. It's not the emperor part that's shot. The part I want you to concentrate on is that first part. This premise that we have the right to attack up-and-coming powers. And think about for the moment, what does that mean? If you're saying that you as a country have the pretext, anytime that you want as a military doctrine, to literally attack other countries, what does that mean? Doesn't that mean to some degree you will be in perpetual war because it is a promise that there will always be up-and-coming powers? That was the context of the First World War. What Austria-Hungary did here ended up initiating a series of events that led to the First World War, which in all honesty led to the Second World War. The world that we have today is living in the ashes of the First World War. The redrawing of the maps that Britain did from the standpoint of carving up the Ottoman Empire, the Syria, Iraq, Iran, etc. The beginning of the Palestinian thing with the Balfour Document, which later gets worse. But I guess my point is that premise that you as a country can attack other countries so they won't challenge your hegemonic view of things. Take a look at this. Where is it? Right here. All right, I'm going to flip this, but I want you to see if there's any commonality here. The Wolfowitz Doctrine and why the United States and Russia would never see eye to eye. It is impossible for them to see eye to eye because the United States, well, let's just read it. That is how the Wolfowitz Doctrine, let's right here. As Gorbachev acceded to Germany's Western alignment on the condition that the United States would limit NATO expansion, Baker's own top officials at the Pentagon began to push Eastern Europe in the U.S. orbit. That is how the Wolfowitz Doctrine, named by Undersecretary of Defense Policy Paul Wolfowitz, later the prophet of George W. Bush neoconservatives, was developed in the end of the Cold War. The doctrine deemed the United States as the world's only remaining superpower and proclaimed its main objective to be retaining that status. Its first objective was to prevent the emergence or reemergence of a new rival either on the territory of the former Soviet Union or elsewhere that poses a threat to the order that's posed. I'm sorry, let me read that one more time. The doctrine deemed that the United States as the world's only remaining superpower and proclaimed its main objective to be retaining that status. Its first objective was to prevent the reemergence of a new rival, either on the territory of the former Soviet Union or elsewhere that poses a threat on the order of that posed formerly by the Soviet Union. World domination. The Wolfowitz Doctrine is, for all intents and purposes, world domination. I don't understand why anybody don't think that's weird. I mean, ultimately, you're asserting that you have the right to attack other nations in the same way that Austria-Hungary had deemed it okay by their own mindset to attack other nations. In the same way that ended in travesty, because it had to end in travesty, because the policy was a militaristic policy that deemed it okay to attack other nations, the United States, to some degree, has implemented a very similar strategy, going by this policy. The Wolfowitz Doctrine, I would argue, has been followed and is being followed in Syria as we speak. What I mean by that is this. Right here. And let's try to flip again. Nikki Haley confirms the United States will now attack Syria for any attack on Idlib. Psychic Nikki Haley. If you remember, psychic Nikki Haley had said that if there is a chemical weapon strike, we will respond. And then she jumps the shark further from if there's a chemical weapon strike to we know that the Syrian government has chemical weapons, and we have it on good intelligence that they are moving those chemical weapons right now. The Russian response to that is the terrorists in that region of the globe are going to do a chemical weapons strike. Now, if you understand this, there's a problem here. You have two superpowers with nuclear weapons having two competing ideas of the world that are mutually exclusive of one another. Both can't be true. Certainly you understand the problem here. Now, it's gone from chemical weapons to any attack on Idlib. Now, understand, Idlib, even by the United Nations own standards, is holding around 10,000 terrorists. I suspect that number is higher than 10,000 terrorists, and they're lowballing it, but the idea that they would admit to the fact that there's, yes, this is a haven of terrorists. There are all sorts of terrorists here. It's a cornucopia, a zoo full of terrorists. It is in Syrian territory. Hundreds of thousands of people have already died in this war. Do you honestly believe that Russia, Syria, and Iran are going to stop from taking Idlib province, especially when everybody admits to the fact that it's full of terrorists? I mean, fuck! Are you serious? We, the protector of terrorists now, have gone down to the mat of saying any attack on Idlib province will get our pimp hand. Now, before you say, well, Jamal, the United States is not going to do, they're only doing that because they care about people. The United States cares about human beings, man, so we get involved in that stuff. I will say you are massively delusional in regards to what the United States' pure intentions are, but let me fill you in on this. Don't take my word for it. Leaked memo schooled Tillerson on human rights. Secretary of State Tillerson needed to be schooled on human rights. Why did Tillerson need to be schooled on human rights? May 17 memo reads like a crash course for businessman turned diplomat, and its conclusion offers a starkly realistic vision that the United States should use human rights as a club against adversaries like Iran, China, and North Korea while giving a pass to repressive allies like the Philippines, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. Over the last few months, during the right of return, Israel has massacred hundreds of people. They've been shooting live rounds into a crowd of thousands of peaceful protesters. Mind you, the open-air ghetto. Mind you, the whole apartheid thing, and making this racist policy of a Jewish state. No response. Nobody cares. That's amazing. Nobody cares. The bulldozing home. Nobody cares. I find this stuff to be amazing. The fact that there was... Look, my point is, the United States doesn't care about human rights. Full stop. Don't take my word for it. Take the analysis of the explanation that was given to Tillerson. Allies should be treated different and better than adversaries. Otherwise, we end up with more adversaries if you're allies. Argue the memo, written by Tillerson's influential policy aide, Brian Hook. I think you would find, if you're honest, that that's true. Regardless of Democratic or Republican administrations, we stick by our friends. We attack people we don't like. Often in very mind-blowing, radically hypocritical ways. The idea that you can attack Iran while at the same token giving a pass to a repressive regime, Saudi Arabia, that's about to chop somebody's head off, I'm just saying, that's a fail. Here's my issue here, and this is where it turns from... Well, all of this is an issue, because all of this means that these guys are positioned in this particular area, with Nikki Haley saying, we will attack if this area is attacked. Look at this. This is before Nikki Haley gave that batshit crazy speech, but look at this. You know what that is? This is footage from the Russian Defense Ministry. This is them attacking Idlib. They're attacking terrorist installations in Idlib. Before Nikki Haley made this speech, they were already attacking quote-unquote terrorist installations in Idlib. Go further with this. Not only were they attacking terrorist installations in Idlib, you must also understand that the United States has already killed Russians and admitted to killing Russians. This is not good. Take a look at this. Here's something else that, yes, I know this is a lot. I apologize, but I want you to think about this for a moment, how I think about this. And I think about this in the context of World War I because I studied World War I. right here. Russia will shoot down U.S. missiles fired at Syria and retaliate against launch sites, says an ambassador. This is their red line. Full stop. This is their red line. If the United States attacks, do you honestly believe that the Russian government is going to back away from that doctrine that they just put out? And to be clear on that, look at this. Yeah, I know it's a lot. I'm sorry. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I'm sorry, I have like Windows open. And I don't have my typical 2-screen setup. Bastard. I can't find it. Alright, so one of the other things that's taken place are military exercises between China and Russia that are apparently the largest since the fall of the Soviet Union. China, early on in another military exercise that took place a few months ago, had made this very clear point of saying this is a message to the United States that we are aligned with Russia on this. Now, some people are second-guessing this. I've seen many articles saying that they don't believe that the Russo-Chino-Sino alliance will last. I think those people are insane. The reason the alliance will last will be for the same reason that Uncle Joe lasted with FDR during the World War II. You were in a wartime situation. China sees the United States as an adversary and to some degree sees war inevitable. China made, let's see, this is Japanese news. Right here. I'm sorry. Where is it? Right here. Jesus Christ. All right, first, let me show this part. China will launch largest war games and a warning to the United States. These are warnings. Understand, these warnings are not to be taken lightly. They're not doing this for shits and giggles. They're not putting on these military exercises for shits and giggles. They're doing this because they believe there's a threat and that they believe these war games, A, will send a message of force and strength, and B, prepare themselves for what they consider to be a potential war if brinksmanship of the United States turn from a proxy war into a hot war. Secondary to this point, thus, for those who think China is bullshitting on this, this is a Chinese document where they were essentially putting military strategy out. Listen to this. The lessons of history teach us that strong military might is important for a country to grow from being big to being strong. It said, a strong military is a way to avoid Thucydides' trap and escape the obsession that war is unavoidable between the emerging powers and ruling hegemony. So, the Thucydides, I may be pronouncing this wrong, Thucydides' trap. Just what that boils down to is a ruling power that has a hegemonic sphere of dominance. When up-and-coming forces come up, it's incentivized of the ruling power to attack those up-and-coming forces. They do so for the same reason as anybody, they see it as a threat. They have a certain dominance, and they feel that they're supposed to keep that dominance, and it's modus operandi to maintain the status quo. All systems that perpetuate themselves seek to establish a certain status quo. The British Empire did it. The Roman Empire did it. Both went through this idea of we're going to maintain our hegemonic power base. China is making the point that the United States is an aging power. And because the United States is an aging power, anything or anybody that's up and coming is going to be somewhat of a threat to their power base. In order to avoid this idea of falling into this, a superpower attacking a smaller power, the smaller power has to have a military sufficient enough to prevent the larger power from willing to attack. Meaning, I can bite the shit out of you if you try to do something to me, and that in and of itself will keep neither power from war. I I think this is folly. I mean, the associations, look, the associations, it depends on the aging power itself. And I think aging powers can do things that are not necessarily in the best interest of the country itself and provoke other actions that take on a certain political significance that lead to political outcomes that goes beyond the individuals in the office. During the, as an example, in that I Am the Resistance, one of the things that came up showed that Donald Trump was vacillating on this idea of military force, and he was annoyed that they kept putting him in a conflict with Russia. That means that his natural inclination is not necessarily to be hawkish. Take a look at this. The guy who's about to attack Idlib back in 2013, we should stay the hell out of Syria. The rebels are just as bad as the current regime. What will we get for our lives and billions of dollars? Zero. That's his basic standing point. And that neocon, to some degree, backed this up, thinking that that was an attack on Trump. That was actually one of the qualities that the people put him in office for. Let me read this one last part. I said early on in my videos when I started my channel that the attacks by the Democratic Party on Donald Trump in this way are going to limit Donald Trump's actions. I said that because from a political standpoint, the reason you attack somebody like that is either to take him down, take his head off, or limit his abilities. Meaning he doesn't want to play into the narrative. The narrative in and of itself is to some degree politically toxic. No, the public doesn't necessarily care about it, but the mainstream media cares about it, and that could give enough political impetus to go after Donald Trump in more severe ways. Donald Trump is limited in his actions. Whether Donald Trump wants to be less hawkish from the standpoint of Russia or not almost becomes irrelevant, because any action that Donald Trump makes to try to pull away from this idea of a nuclear war gets hit by Democrats as being, hey, that guy's a Putin puppet, and that guy is doing that purely for Vladimir Putin's sake. It is impossible from the standpoint of political wins for Donald Trump to back away. Impossible is too strong. He could do it. But what would be the political consequences for him doing so? It is found easier for him to go along with the political wins. And if I'm being honest, for the same reason that Bernie Sanders went along with the political wins. They didn't want to push back against this, and it was more, I would say, dangerous for Trump to do it. This is leading us to war. These guys are going to attack Idlib. Russia will attack Idlib. Syria will attack Idlib because it wants to take its territory back. Iran will help them in this proceeding. If the United States intrudes upon this and attacks any of those forces, seeing as they were talking about even expanding the attacks to associate forces, Russia will respond. They've given their red line. One last point. I want to show the context of all this. There's other videos I've done where I've shown the WikiLeaks, and I'm sorry, this is a long video, where I've shown WikiLeaks in these kind of communications of hit Trump with Russia. Okay, that was back, I think, 2015 or something to that effect. This is the book Shattered. This is after Hillary Clinton lost the race. Listen, if this sounds a little weird and that the media just kind of jumped on this full-throatedly without any kind of critical thought or even any kind of real critical analysis, and once they set their narrative in stone, everything else fit within the context of the narrative, not necessarily contradictory to the narrative. Anything that contradicted that narrative or poked holes in this thing of, wait a minute, this is just a conspiracy theory, what do you have to actually nail this down, either got ignored or got put as, oh, that guy believes in the conspiracy theory that Donald Trump didn't conspire with Russia. Then the narrative shifted. Then it wasn't Trump and Russia. It was Trump had some nefarious actions with Vladimir Putin, but maybe not in a way that we were talking about. Then it became hacking. Then it became attacks on democracy. The narrative of this has shifted from Trump and Russia collusion, because nobody can make the case of Trump and Russia collusion, to this nonsense now that we have hacking. Spearfishing. Spearfishing becomes hacking. On a phone call with a longtime friend a couple of days after the election, Hillary was much less accepting of her defeat. She put a fine point on the factors she believed cost her the presidency: the FBI, Comey, the KGB, and the KKK. That's amazing. She honestly believed that that's fucking insane. That's fucking insane. There was not an upswell of racists voting in the elections. The people who vote that are racist vote in the Republican Party anyway. Just saying. Trump might have made them more happy to be that way. And yeah, to be fair, there might have been a slight bump. But I've seen nothing to get across this thing that there was this groundswell of racists that just rushed to the polls in order to get Trump elected. That's somebody who's not dealing with their own failures. I am angry, Hillary told her friend, and exhausted. After 2 brutal campaigns against Sanders and Trump, Hillary now had to explain the failure to her friends in a seemingly endless round of phone calls that was taking a toll on her. Mostly, she was mad that she'd lost and the country would have to endure a Trump presidency. In other words, in other calls with advisors and potential surrogates in the days after the election, Hillary declined to take responsibility for her own loss. She's not being particularly self-reflective, said one longtime ally who was on calls with her shortly after the election. Instead, Hillary kept pointing her finger at Comey and Russia. She wants to make sure all these narratives get spun the right way, this person said. That strategy has been set within 24 hours of her concession speech. Mook and Bethesda assembled the communications team at the Brooklyn headquarters to engineer the case that the election wasn't entirely on the up and up. For a couple of hours, I almost call that Shake Shack containers littering the room. They went over the script they would pitch to the press and the public. Already, Russian hacking was the centerpiece of the argument. 24 hours after that woman failed miserably in front of 300 million or 320 million people, or to be fair, 7 billion people around the globe. Let's drop that down to 5 billion because there's some people living in tents and huts that don't know that shit exists. She was crafting a narrative of Trump and Russia to explain her own failures. Now, the media didn't look at this and say, this is somebody who's trying to explain away their failures. They accepted it full bore because they hated Donald Trump's guts. Trump derangement. You have a media who's screaming bloody murder about Russia. You have Democrats who's screaming bloody murder about Russia. And the belief that this wouldn't somehow infect the political discourse. The President of the United States is faced with a decision on whether or not he's going to attack Idlib after the Syrian government attacks in order to take back their territory. Between the two, the President of the United States is illegally in that country. The President of the United States, any attack on it would be, again, illegal. The media is not going to bring that up. The media is not going to have that conversation at all. If he attacks, Russia will respond. And if Russia responds, what do you think will take place from the standpoint of events? Yes, this is dramatically dangerous. Let's see. Come on. Someone contributed. I want to give you due credit. Fake news. Fake news. Ferdinand wasn't shot. He's still alive in Austria with the kangaroos and the barrier reef. That's so random. He has the best life, believe me, and he's going to make Austria kangaroo again. Oh man, God, that's hilarious. Fake news. Ferdinand wasn't shot. He's still alive in Austria with the kangaroos and the barrier reefs. He has the best life, believe me, and he's going to make Austria kangaroo again. I got to be honest, I have no idea what that means, but okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, wow. I can't believe we have this many people. We also have a campaign of leaking from the FBI to media clusters around appointments of SC Mueller leaking classified intel. Peter version 1, Russia made Hillary not campaign in the Rust Belt. Well, look, man, those crafty Russian ads, you know, it probably enticed her not to campaign in the Rust Belt. So, crafty Russians. Either that or Susan Sarandon. I don't know which one. I'm blaming Susan Sarandon for everything at this point, so that's where I'm at. Who is the axis of evil right now? So Bolton is trying to make this argument that North Korea, Iran, are somehow into this, you know, this kind of mesh. He is terrifying, man. He is terrifying. I mean, he is like the stuff that he's a lunatic. I mean, this is the same guy who's talking about celebrating in Tehran in 2019. That's a year away. He's talking about regime change in Tehran within the course of a year. That's John Bolton. Now, for all those Trump supporters who say, Donald Trump is not going to start a war, man. I don't know why you think that. Then why is he hiring somebody who's a sadistic psychopath to whisper in his ear on foreign policy? Why? Why would you do that? Why would you hire somebody that is ideologically opposite to you? If I need to hire somebody to do videography on my channel, am I going to hire a neocon? Probably not. Am I going to hire somebody who's a Republican? Probably not. Am I going to hire somebody who's firmly in the Democratic? Probably not. They're probably going to hate my guts. I'm probably going to be annoyed with them. Nothing is going to take place that's positive. I'm probably going to hire somebody that's more aligned with my political ideology, as it makes it easier for this particular type of show. He's hiring somebody for reasons. The people of policy. Always remember that. People of policy. If he's hiring him and putting him in that office, he's not doing so for no reason. He's doing so because, I guess my point is, you don't hire somebody who's politically different than you in a severe way, as these two are. And I'm assuming that. I don't know if that's true of Trump's political ideology. I think he's vacant. I don't think he has a full board political ideology. I think he's in over his head. I don't think he knows what he's doing. I think he's a reality show host that won the presidency, and on that day that he won the presidency, the most shocked person on the planet was Donald Trump himself. That's what I think. So, you know, I fucked up. If actress, jag-off nightclub comedians, and Twitter trolls can sway elections through political power, I fucked up by only settling to be a voter. It's like, why even spend $1 billion if you could just do it all through, just hire a bunch of Russians to be Facebook and Twitter ads? Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right, this video has gone on for like an hour. I'm sorry, 30 minutes. I tried to go through the various things in the way I see it, and the way I understand it, actually, which is why I went through the various things. This is one of those issues where I've been covering for, I guess, over a year now, at least on the show. And you build up a warehouse of information as you're doing that, because you've been talking about it for like a year. It's a big fucking deal. And like, it's terrifying, that's all. This is a potential for very bad ends. I'll just leave it there. All right, I'll leave it there. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through Patreon. Luca Clemente is in the house. What's happening? Peter version 1, yes, I'm going to continue to cover this because this is an important story. I think that's supposed to be, I don't think I've ever seen a bigger or more gross cesspool of corruption politics. Yeah, agreed. And it seems these creeps don't care if we know and was proud of their corruption. Well, there's no consequence. There's no consequence. Like, if there was a consequence for bad behavior, yes. But over time, it seems like the system has been so hollowed out and corrupt that there is nothing there to hit back when somebody goes over the rails. The idea that Hillary Clinton could, like, so cavalierly deal with those emails. That's the emails by itself, not even the Clinton Foundation. And there's no consequence for that. Everybody agreed it was bad behavior. Comey himself, when questioned, agreed that in multiple accounts she lied. And yet, at the same token, Comey himself lied in his testimony because Comey had killed that case before that case had even interviewed the key witness. Yes, people pretend or don't care because there's not a consequence. If there was a consequence, yeah, I think people would care. In our system, not so much. Not so much. Vote Bob Ramirez. I'm with him. I'm with him. Personally, Bob would never admit this. He would never admit this at all. But I strongly suspect election night 2020, Bernie Sanders is on the podium. And one of those votes for Sanders was from one Bob Ramirez. Bob Ramirez would never come here and say that. But I think that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying, Bob, I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's what's going to happen. Cynthia Krevico. Man, this name, I'm sorry. I'm going to call you Krez for short because I'm going to butcher your name. Americans, you're lucky because you can frankly speak about political situations. Russians can't. We have no freedom of internet. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Unfortunately, that freedom is being stripped away because they are feeling their power slipping away. So the secrecy that Russia used to implement, and even this level of pravda of sorts, in the way that media kind of repeats or just regurgitates government talking points, it's getting very, no, it's not as extreme, but there's a weird form of manufacturing consent in this country that keeps the political ideologies and opinions constrained very narrowly. No, it didn't have to be as overt as you guys were in Russia. Russia, the Soviet Union was in a war. The Cold War. Yeah, I mean, they're calling it a Cold War, but you had an organization set up to be against another, you can say, nation. It's like, what do you expect? Cuba, for example, a tiny, tiny country where the United States tried to assassinate the head of state, what, like 100 times? Literally, if I'm not mistaken, like 100 times. Cuba was literally at war with the United States and at war with a much larger power. Now, people hit them saying, you know, repressive and everything else. They were at war. I will guarantee you that the United States will get as repressive as any of these countries if the United States went into a war where it had to literally use the resources of the nation. When Britain was at its, wits end, Britain got somewhat repressive also, meaning Parliament, peace activists were pushed to the side in both countries. Your rights will be constrained from the standpoint of war because the justification is we can't allow these people to speak their minds because the war is at stake. I'm just saying, it's not as, yes, it was a repressive government, but it's not that simple. It will soon be a hot war. And to quote Obama, the 1980s called, they want their foreign policy back, the Cold War is over. That was dramatically false, apparently. But understand, it's not dramatically false because of them. It's dramatically false because of us. Have you covered the disaster for the internet that is Article 11 and 13? I have not. I don't know what Article 11 and 13 is. I'll check it out, though. Thank you for bringing this up. Was Israel collusion ever a thing? Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I have that story. I post my stories on Twitter because I try to figure out which stories I want to do. The collusion with Israel thing was amazing and completely ignored. Completely ignored. Propaganda and mainstream media is holding this country back. Yes, but to some degree, this country wants to be held back. I mean, they don't want to wake from the illusions, man. Yeah. All right. 25 or 64. Oh, I love it when you give songs lyrics. Collusion with Saudi is the worst. And, that's kind of the thing with the Tillerson memo, right? It's, you don't bring up stuff with your friends, only your enemies. So essentially, your political policy is literally politically expedient hypocrisy. And that is essentially the policy of the United States. Hypocrisy. And the media looks at this policy and says, okay, we will agree with this, and we will back you up on this, and we will essentially give this hypocrisy to your audience. And we would call this the news. And if anybody disagrees with this functional hypocrisy that's done for political expedience, we would call them, a conspiracy theorist or something. That Tillerson memo is amazing. Does the media know that? Like, does Chuck Todd know about that Tillerson memo? It's like, geez, man. The news is making me want to smoke a blunt. What, to chill out? Yeah, I feel you, dog. I feel you, man. All right, I'm going to end this here because these lights are probably about to fail. So if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the Patreon. Oh, by the way, one last point. The United States leaving, the reason why this is such a big deal to them is because this would mean that they failed to take Syria down. It is a strike to national pride. Yes, this was proxy, but at a certain point, it became very clear that this was the United States, Western powers, giving weapons and resources to terrorists in that region of the world to take down the Assad government. Just saying. Like, at a certain point, it wasn't even hidden anymore. When Tulsi Gabbard went and came back saying we're giving weapons to bloodthirsty terrorists and rapists, why are we giving weapons to terrorists and rapists? And Jake Tapper immediately repeated the government's lie. The government said they're not doing that. The government lied. Jake Tapper either was incompetent or Jake Tapper was lying. I don't know which. We were assisting terrorists. Right now, we are going to bat, potentially, to start World War III with terrorists. It's amazing. Just saying. Just saying. Happy Sunday, Jamal. My Sunday is almost over with. But thank you. It's like 6 p.m. here. 6:40 something. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Can you believe it? He'll never catch Carmen Sandiego. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? No, let me check. Let me check, Bill. Let me check. I didn't see the thing go off. That's weird. No, I read that one. I fucked up. If an actress, jag-off nightclub comedians, and Twitter trolls can sway elections through their political power, I fucked up by only settling to be a voter. I read that one. I know, fake news. Fake news. Ferdinand wasn't shot. He's still alive. Austria with kangaroos and barrier reefs. He has the best life. Believe me, he's going to make Austria kangaroo again. I don't know what that one means, though. He's going to make Austria kangaroo again. I don't know what that one means. It's funny, but I don't know what it means. What's going on? Oh, here we are. Fake news. Did you visit the hospital? Did you visit the hospital where Obama was born? So here's the thing. I'm going to be talking to people in various parts of the world. I'm going to try to not get locked up. I tried to get into Israel. I wasn't allowed in Israel. There was a gentleman who was putting out videos that were amazing videos of what was taking place in the occupied territories of Palestine, particularly in the West Bank. I asked him, can I visit him? I said, I'm going to be in that area. Can I come in? And look, I understand the danger. I wouldn't bring my wife in. It's purely just me. I want to report the story. Like, I love the opportunity to be able to actually talk to people where they are. Any asshole can sit somewhere and pontificate about something somewhere else. The complexity of this stuff will always be to some degree opaque. So fair enough. It's another thing to go and talk to the people who are there and get their impression of their own environment. In the same way, if somebody talked to me, I can give them a pretty decent impression of U.S. politics. But in this case, I've been able to talk to guys from Qatar and from Kenya. I'm going to put those interviews up because they're fascinating. I mean, like the problems that we're experiencing in the United States clearly are not so singular to the United States, but it's not singular to Western worlds or Western countries either. Like what's taking place in Kenya to some degree is almost synonymous with what's taking place in the United States. When the cab driver at one point, I said, hey, what are the politics like in Kenya? And he was like, oh, like he's groaning, and he's going into this thing of people hate politicians here. He said politicians will say one thing and then get in office and do something completely different. He said it is complicated as to why that happens. He says, but ultimately what it boils down to is the powerful versus people without power. And fact is, when these people get in office, they bail. They can't be trusted. I'm sitting in the cab like, wow. I was like, that's the same thing in the States. And he goes telling me about the hospitals. He goes telling me about the brain drain that's taking place, meaning people who will get their medical degrees in Kenya and then leave Kenya because they don't believe they have any prospects. There was a sign that says, if you want to get medical treatment, you can do it here. You don't have to leave anywhere else. Now, again, kind of like when I say the reason you have a compound doesn't make me feel safe, because if you have a compound, you're building it because you're trying to keep some bad dudes out. In the same way, if somebody has a gun, that doesn't make me feel safe, because if you're wearing a gun, you're feeling unsafe yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't be wearing a gun, nor would it have been created in the first place. And if you're telling people that they don't have to leave the country if they have a medical issue, then that means people are leaving the country because they don't believe the country is adequately deal with the medical issues. He was telling me about the doctors in the hospitals who were ill-equipped to deal with issues that were taking place in Kenya. Many of the doctors had left for better prospects elsewhere. Austerity. I even bought a Kenyan newspaper because I look at this shit all the time. But I know there's stuff on this, but MPs will feel pain in Uhuru's austerity plan. More austerity. The guy that I was talking to was pissed off. He was clear that everybody and multiple people were pissed off. That people hated politicians. They barely talk politics because they were so dejected from what they believe these guys will actually do. And they're still putting through more austerity. Still putting through more austerity. Wow, that's really really bright. Let's see if this works better. All right, that's a little bit better. Let's see. This is probably Balthazar again, which I don't mind because I think your things are funny. Trump impression. Fake news was a Trump impression where Austria was confused with Australia. No way, are you serious? Was a Trump impression where Austria was confused with Australia. That's funny. Those are two very different places. Very different places. SSS don't attack people for mere speech. Fascists are aspiring terrorists. What, they were attacking people for speech. I mean, what are you talking about? Germany? They were attacking people for speech. I mean, that was kind of the problem. The night of the broken glass, where they were like axing certain people who they thought would be detractors from the regime they were trying to put into place. The attacking on labor unions, attacking on workers. Hitler had absolute power. Like, I don't... Fascists weren't all that cool with alternate opinions. I mean, they call them fascists for a reason. Hitler was an Aussie. Hitler was not an Aussie. Hitler was a German. Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My bad. All right. I'm going to end this. We're in a dangerous time, and I don't quite understand why other people don't think of it that way. I don't get it. In the Cuban Missile Crisis, all eyes was on the Cuban Missile Crisis. And on this, the President of the United States, as a complete buffoon, is in a similar situation with two nuclear power nations, because any war with Russia is a war with China. And it's like nothing. Did you take your dogs with you? No. So my mom has Pitsu. That's the small yapper. And Bo is with her mom. So the big one, the big 70-pound lapdog, he's with Aisha's mom. And the little one, the mean, or the one that has a little bit more personality, or the very least is a bit more of an asshole. That one is with my mom. Oh, I see. Right here. So let's talk about this one. Oh, God, I was going to end this. David Harrell, Marcia Antifa equals fascists, claiming to hate fascists. Get out of here with your provocative bullshit. Yeah, there was a lot of like dogs and monkeys and all sorts of stuff that's nearby. Antifa is complicated to me, man. I am a free speech absolutist to some degree. Not absolutist is too strong. I don't want people yelling fire in a crowded theater, or getting on video saying they're going to murder somebody. So fair enough. Let's put a caveat in on something like that. Things that are going to intend harm or violence or cause magnificent harm and violence. But some goofball giving a speech, no. And honestly, if you have to do that, meaning if you have to shut the speech down, then there's something wrong with your society. I mean, for fuck's sake. What if other groups did that? Meaning, what if hate groups started to shut down other groups based on the premise that Antifa did it so we can do it too? I understand that Antifa believes it's right. I agree with them that for the most part, between actual fascists and people who are out there trying to stop the fascists, I agree with the people who are trying to stop the fascists. But my problem with this is, it's this idea of we're anti-fascists while being fascists. Look, if somebody is being attacked, fair enough. But some of this seems to be provocateurs. And you lose the moral high ground adding violence into the picture in this way. That's my opinion. I agree with Chris Hedges on this. I really do. I mean, yeah, I agree with Chris Hedges on this. U.S. politics is running Jamal's vacation. No, it's not. I mean, I've been able to talk politics in Qatar. I've been able to talk politics in Kenya. I am pretty sure I'm going to get more perspectives on this stuff. I wish, if I'm being honest, it's not a vacation. It's not a vacation. That's what it is. It's not a vacation. It's not a vacation. I was going to take this day, but it's not a vacation. Reagan called them an evil empire and exploding defense spending didn't push us to war, and Democrats in Congress are just going too far. Come on, is that your thinking, or did I miss just join? Well, it's a little different. Let's be fair. It's a little different. They were calling them the evil empire, and it was in the context of a Cold War. Fair enough. But you've had Democratic Party going batshit crazy. And in going batshit crazy, they've completely went with this narrative that Russia attacked democracy itself. And some of these people were literally making the conjecture that an attack, a spearfishing, is equivalent to an attack on the United States. That's where they've been going with this. Now, you can say the Democrats are going too far. That doesn't quite, that's a yada yada. It's like, what do you do to you? I say, I got out of bed, and yada yada, I just ended up back home. Missing the fact that there was a police chase, you might have robbed a bank, and you banged a hooker or something. Like, that's a magnificent yada yada that doesn't get across what we're talking about. An argument that a spearfishing of John Podesta is an equivalent to an attack on democracy itself. That's the context of the conversation. Now, in the context of the conversation of saying Russia has hacked us and attacked us for the last 3 years, mainstream media sticking to that narrative constantly, over and over and over and over and over again, one little thing after one little tidbit that doesn't mean one iota of anything, but is putting in the context of the Russia stuff, so it gives it this idea that there's something there. Yeah, that's dangerous. You're seeding your society with a certain hatred of another country. I've seen people on Twitter call Russians rats. How repugnant is that? How repugnant is that? But all of this is not coming out of a vacuum. That was an attempt to actually try to have this kind of slight détente. But fact is, the position of the United States that there would be no other spheres of influence means that that even includes China and Russia. It is pivoting us against in a war format. I don't know how you can argue with that. I think that's right. I think that's right. I mean, of course you can argue with it, but I think it's right. I take freedom of speech seriously. I have anarchist leanings. Same here. You can insult me, but it's not my right to counter with violence. Yes. Agreed. Agreed. David Howard, I agree with you. I agree with you. I tend to be more libertarian on this. Because fact is, the same ruling that you use to shut down one, you can use to shut down another. And this idea that there's some body that has absolute knowledge and would never change its tilt in the way that it thinks, that can make the clear determination of we're going to shut that person down because it is right to shut that person down. That same axe can be used towards you. And that same axe is being used towards you, meaning from the left. I've heard lefties make an argument that it's perfectly okay to shut down people that they don't particularly like. I find that to be amazing. How are you on the left making that argument? But they make that argument nonetheless. They make that argument nonetheless. People are past falling for identity politics anymore. It's down to hardcore fringe of self-victimizer. Man, you left me. You led me into a weird place on that. I swore you were going somewhere else with that. People are past falling for identity politics anymore. It is down to a hardcore fringe of self-victimizers. The self-victimizers thing is hilarious. God, that's funny. That's hilarious. How about North Korea? Look, I don't know what North Korea, because I don't know how seriously Donald Trump is taking the peace thing. North Korea is using that bomb for defensive purposes. They are. Donald Trump being antagonistic is, I guess, his playbook of brinksmanship with this idea of bringing them to the table. Well, mind you, he precipitated those events, meaning conflict, calling the man Rocket Man and all this other nonsense. If North Korea was given a carrot, it may bite. But you have to go through with it. We haven't gone through with the things that we said we were going to do, and then we ended up calling them the axes of evil, which at that point ruined all relationships. If you treat people fairly, if you treat countries fairly, you may actually get a better result as opposed to this kind of militaristic brute force, my way or the highway, you're going to do what I say. Yeah, that's going to lead to a war. Of course that's going to lead to a war. It is logical, as logical can be, that that is going to lead to a war. Full stop. Full stop. Uh-oh. We have a fight on my chat. You know, it's funny. Somebody says there's always a fight on Jamal's chat. But the wild part about it, oftentimes it doesn't get ridiculous. Where can I learn about Islamists trained in sadism now that Alex Jones is going? Exactly, Luca. It's like there's a store in the mall called Haberdashers. Now, I laugh at that because I get joked about the haberdasher thing because I use it in one of my my punditries. But this is kind of the same way. It's like, where am I going to learn about these Islamic sadists? Where am I going to learn about that? Now that Alex Jones is gone, man, you've ended my ability to learn about those type of things. Corporations own America and our elected officials sold it to them. You think we'd get at least a few crumbs of it? You did get a few crumbs. You got a few crumbs. I mean, during, up into the 80s, yeah, there was somewhat of a even keel and distribution of income raising with productivity. After the 1980s, with the Reagan Revolution, look, let's say it this way. Once the Soviet Union collapsed, there was no reason to give you the reforms. The Soviet Union was an alternative living situation. You had another government that had literally another competing nation that was even a competing ideology. It wasn't just this country, it was this organization itself, this principle of organization that we are going by. The United States, as well as Western powers, understood that socialism, even if it was in this guise of this kind of state capitalism, was a moral force. And in being a moral force, FDR, and well, not FDR, but No, that's fair. The United States felt that they need to have some level of competition against that. If you're saying that you're making sure that people are okay, and there are people who are hungry and dying in the street in the United States, that looks bad. There needs to be some give back with this idea of saving capitalism, which is what FDR did. Once that system imploded, though, why? Like, what was the need? Where was the need at that point? There was no competing ideology. You might have had some countries that were like China or so forth, but those weren't necessarily competing ideologies and standpoint of a nation that you're pivoted against. I've heard compelling arguments that the moment when the Soviet Union collapsed, the United States had no need to give those things back. Meaning your crumbs started to get pulled back. Oh, my lights. All right. I'm going to take that as God telling me to stop and go do something else. Guys, oh, here we are. All right, so I'm going to end this here. Guys, if you enjoy the content, oh God, that looks so spooky. It's like a horror novel. Somebody's going to he's going to run after my wife. And just pure willpower alone and love for Mrs. Thomas. Despite 20 knife wounds. Despite the heart not even beating much, I'm going to drag myself up and I'm going to fight the burglar. I told Aisha's mom that I was going to bring her back safely. And she threatened me pretty significantly if anything happened to her daughter. So I am going hell or high water about hook or crook that my wife is getting back home safely. All right, I'm going to end this. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the Patreon. God damn it, I think I said that like 3 times. It's automatic. Yes, I believe it. Let me be honest with you for the moment. I enjoy doing the news. It's a fulfilling thing, man. There's a guy who hit me up today, and he says, hey, he says, I saw you were looking for a business opportunity. What type of business opportunity are you thinking of? And I never really thought about it, to be honest. I threw the business opportunity thing up kind of as I'm an anti-capitalist. I don't know how many people, how many capitalists are going to invest in an anti-capitalist website. That being said, I don't have absolute knowledge, and because I don't have absolute knowledge, I put it up. So when he asked, I'm like, I have no clue. I have zero clue. I said, in all honesty, I just wanted to do the news. Like, this was never supposed to be a monetization thing. After I just kind of stumbled into it. I don't like this part. I never liked this part. And I think if you look back over my videos, I've never liked this part of the task. It's just kind of a necessary evil in order to do the show. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I mean, after YouTube attacked the channel, attacked democracy itself by attacking the soapbox, didn't really have a choice. All right, I'm going to kill this. Thank you all. Is that why you did not answer my email message? Wait, what's your email message? Sometimes I may miss just because I may miss. It's not intentional. Rob, what's happening? Rob at Noise in the house. C card. I don't know off the top of my head. If you feel okay with sharing it here, feel free. Luca is. Oh yeah, I'm going to be honest. It's the insinuation is everything else being said was a lie. No, I say that reflexively when I'm talking to people. Like, be honest, be honest, be honest. Oh, that was you. That was you. I didn't know that was you. And I answered that email today. I answered that email. I answered that email. I swear to God, I answered that email. Everything that I'm saying here now, I literally said in that email. All right, let me find my response. But I swear to God, dude, I responded to you immediately. Are you serious? I still responded to this. Yeah, I responded to this. To be frank, I'm uncertain on this point. I put the blurb there as I don't have absolute take on reality. I'm stuck knowing I don't know. But yeah, I've responded to this. I responded to this. Yeah, I responded to this. No, I responded. You check out that video. Not yet, Rob. We were in the middle of a draft thing. But let me check it out. David, I personally advocate for community defense. Oh, like the Black Panthers, but I don't oppose Antifa if they want to attack fascists. But certainly, you know that's problematic, right? Marshall Villager, and I'm not. I'm pushing back on that, man. What if a bunch of yahoos in Montana decides they want to create a militia, and they want to create a militia to push back against the United States government? Now, I understand that contextually, those people are insane. As opposed to what you would consider to be the Black Panthers, who is literally doing that for community defense. As a human being, I can look at both of those situations and I can say one party has a screw loose and is violent and is problematic. The other is defending their community. But you understand, from the standpoint of the United States government, I'm not going to say they're the same, but it's an organization it's a militia. From the standpoint of the United States, it's a militia. Jamal ended the show 15 minutes ago. This is our imagination. Honestly, Luca, this show was supposed to be ended 30 minutes ago. At 29 minutes, I was like, all right, I've been in this. Ideological or political speech you don't like not constitute legitimate threat or violence. Yes, I agree with that. I think that's my problem with Antifa. So, what's his name? Yosevich? I can't think of his name. The guy, he's a repugnant human being. He has weird hair. He's flaming. And he says such hateful things. Like profoundly hateful things. Now, he wanted to do a speech at one of the universities. And they were burning trash cans and whatnot and flipping out. Now, the world looks at that. Even the public looks at that. And you understand, from a political standpoint, you look horrendous there. This Yahoo was going to give a speech that a few people were going to go to. Who gives a shit? Let him die in irrelevance. And again, I make the point that if you're having a problem where that guy is getting traction, then there's something wrong with your society. That is not the situation to that or solution to that. It's not to shut down speech. That's all I'm getting at. That's my issue here. And being violent about it is going to get you cast as violent. It's going to be cast as violent. The media is going to portray you as if you're some kind of terrorist organization. That is not going to advance your ends. I'm just saying, Yiannopoulos, that's it. Thank you, SSS. Thank you, SSS. Same puppet that launched COINTELPRO. You know what's wild? The COINTELPRO infiltrated the Black Panthers. And it was turning the leaders of the Panthers against each other in an attempt to undermine the unity of the group. This is, to some degree, true in many movements in the left. And man, I have a Twitter thing. I have a Twitter post where the feds sent out this kind of screenshot, missing the fact that in the screenshot was a left-leaning site. They were monitoring left-wing sites. So, all right, I'm gonna kill. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, always support the Patreon. Let me make sure I haven't missed anyone. Everyone that donated, I think it was just Beltazar. Thank you very much. You guys are always appreciated. And let's... Trump impression was the last one. Fake news was a Trump impression where Austria was confused with Australia. Sad. God, that's sad. Take all the labels and shove them where the sun doesn't shine. I stick with patriots if the talk is about policy. Video game vision quest. Even if people don't like Antifa, the idea that they're equal to Nazis is... No. I don't think they're Nazis. No. I mean, look, like I said, I can look at two different things and contextually come up with an answer saying, yes, these guys are Nazis and these guys are punching Nazis. Yes. I don't make the same basis of action from Antifa versus actual Nazis. My point here is that the moment that they're using violence to shut down speech, they've treaded into this line where they lose the moral argument. That's my point. They look as bad as the people who they're stopping. That's my point. I don't think they're Nazis. No, I think their basis of action is completely different. And I think their basis of action is coming from this thing of these guys are dangerous and we need to do something about these guys being dangerous. But this is speech. That's what I'm saying. It's shutting down speech. It's not shutting down a person's action. And the very act of shutting down that person's speech, whether you realize it or not, creates a propaganda video for the fact that you shut them down. Nazis used to go marching into places where they knew people were going to hit them and beat them and all this other stuff because they could show it on video and say, look at this. We're trying to speak truth and we're trying to fight all of these forces and we're assailed on all sides. It gives them propaganda material. If they're attacking someone, fair enough. If the police are standing by doing, fair enough. But shutting down speech is a fail. That's a fail to me. I'm sorry, that's a fail to me. Hello, Shirk. Holy smokes, the last time I was here, Jamal was saying goodbye. This is classic Jamal. Uh-oh, he's about to say, you didn't prepare for this video, man. You didn't prepare for this video, dog. That's hello, Shirk. Martian Villager, JT, what do you think about policy, military being infiltrated by white supremacists? I saw that. I don't know what to think about that. A, that's fucking terrifying. It's fucking terrifying. I'll say that. I don't know whether it's true or not. Will there be a percentage in the military that are white supremacists? Yes. Why wouldn't there be? Like, think about it for a moment. Why wouldn't there be? Like, when you think about the spectrum of anything, there's usually something on the bottom end of the spectrum, something on the top end of the spectrum, and this kind of chubby part in the middle. When I think of this, I would think that this would be on the bottom end of the spectrum. I could be wrong on that. But at the very least, there will be some, just by virtue of this being a military, and that you're pulling people from all walks of life, from all around the world. Does that constitute infiltration as opposed to the media trying to create a narrative of infiltration? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know at all. All right. I keep saying I'm going to end this video, and this video has gone on for like 45 minutes longer than what I said I was going to end it. Guys, thank you all for showing up. It's 7... Okay, so I think it's what, 1 a.m. back home. Thank you guys for showing up. I mean, I know it's late. Have a good night, guys.